Jeremy Frimpong at right wing back, one of Teo DeMarco or Alphonso Davies as a left wing back, Alvaro Fernandez as the alternative left wing back to one of those, but considering Manchester United's financial situation with PSR and FFP, if we could get him back in January, I'd probably just take Fernandez as a starting left wing back and have someone cheaper like Reguilon or potentially Harry Amas as the backup. Now, in an ideal world, if Manchester United actually started acting like an elite level club, Frimpong would be the right wing back and one of Teo or Alphonso Davies would be the left wing back, just because I think DeMarco will be too expensive. But with Frimpong and one of Teo or Davies, this would give United an incredible set of wing backs. But the question is, how would having two truly elite level wing backs in Amorim's 3-4-3 radically change our capabilities from a tactical point of view, and what effect would it have on the likes of Ahmad, Bruno, Xerxes, Rashford and co? But I'll come on to that second part in just a bit, but first, why Frimpong, Teo, Davies and Alvaro Fernandez as the players I've selected as the perfect options for Amorim's system? So Frimpong and Teo I've done multiple videos about over the last year or so. Alphonso Davies is someone who I assumed was going to Real Madrid, so I just kind of discounted him, and Alvaro Fernandez was someone who I never wanted to leave the club in the first place. But all of these options provide Amorim's system with pacing behind the opposition's backline, ball carrying ability through the defensive and middle third, as well as end product from wide areas in the final third. Frimpong, in my opinion, is by far the best right wing back in world football, maybe only behind Trent to be honest, even though he does offer something different from that role. But in terms of a wing back that provides elite level winger like output, Frimpong is that guy. And just by looking at his FBref report over the past 365 days, when compared against every other fullback in Europe's top 5 leagues, you can very clearly see how good he is. For his non-penalty goals and non-penalty XG, Frimpong ranks in the top 1%, as well as the top 4% for his XG assisted, and even though he is far more of a dribbler and a ball carrier, he still progresses the ball into dangerous positions via his passing and crossing, sitting in the low to mid 80th percentiles for his passes and his crosses into the box. But dribbling and ball carrying is where Frimpong is the biggest ball progression threat. But before I show you those numbers, if you do like retro jerseys, go over to Jersey FIFA, they've got a wide range of jerseys, as well as the new season shirts as well. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a discount. A link will be in my Instagram bio, which I will leave linked in the description. So Frimpong sits in the top 1 and 2% for his carries into the penalty area and his progressive carries respectively, as well as the 96th percentile for his successful take-ons and the 90th for his carries into the final third. Now defensively is where Frimpong has been criticised, as he certainly isn't a high volume defensive wingback or fullback, as his FBref report shows, and at the back post from aerial situations, opposition sides would definitely seek to exploit his lack of height and overall aerial ability. However, whilst this would be a big concern for me if he was playing in a back 4, in a back 5 Frimpong has the defensive security of a right-sided centre-back like Mazraoui, Dalot, Euro or even De Ligt behind him, and whilst he still would have to defend in 1v1 situations, I think he can hold his own against most wingers in the league, with his pace being a massive asset in these situations, or really any situation where Frimpong has to make a defensive recovery run, because he's about as quick as you could want. He also provides versatility, as at Leverkusen we often saw Xabi Alonso using Frimpong as either a right wing back in a back 5, but also as a right winger in the front 3 of his 3-4-3 system or 5-2-3 system, whatever you want to call it, often being used in this more advanced position so he can be given the defensive duty of tracking the run of the opposition's fullback down the flank, seeing him drop into a familiar wide position in the back line and allowing Xabi Alonso to create a back 6 during certain phases of play, as Leverkusen would take up a Mourinho inspired 6-3-1 of sorts in their defensive third. And so whilst under Amorim, Frimpong's primary role is going to be in a back 5 as a right wing back, during certain games you could actually use Frimpong in a more advanced position with Mazraoui or Dalot behind, which would not only provide you with extra defensive cover, but would also release Frimpong to be more of a threat on the counter through his pace and his ball carrying, as well as getting in behind the back line a lot more often. Teo Hernandez and Alphonso Davies are perfectly suited to the wing back role. Davies is probably better as someone to provide the threat of a natural winger, being a better 1v1 dribbler. However, overall, as you can probably guess, I do prefer Teo, as just as his FBref report shows, I think he has a better goal scoring and creative output in the final third, whilst also being the better technically in terms of his progressive passing and receiving the ball in congested and central areas, alongside having a similar sort of devastating, powerful ball carrying ability as Davies. Alvaro Alvaro Fernandez also possesses a lot of these traits as well, but obviously he isn't at the level of either Teo or Davies. Now Teo at the end of the season probably would cost between 30 to 35 million pounds because he'll only have 1 year left on his contract, and so given that Alphonso Davies is 3 years younger and available on a free, you would initially assume that Davies would be the better financial option for United. But factoring in Alphonso Davies' massive wage demands, which I think is going to be at least 15 million pounds, maybe up to about 20 million pounds a season, compared with Teo, who is currently on less than 5 million pounds a season at AC Milan and would probably be on around 8 to 9 million pounds at United, given Ineos' strict wage structure. Despite Teo being 3 years older than Alphonso Davies at 27-28 next October, he could be the more realistic option. Now some may say that Teo is too old, but he isn't. You can't only sign young players if you do want to challenge for the title. You need players who are in their peak, but also players who are available at an affordable price and aren't demanding massive salaries. And I think Teo is already world class and could get even better playing as a wing back in Amorim's system, whereas I don't see the likes of Aït-Nouri or Anthony Robinson being at that level, certainly not in terms of their output in the final third. Ideally, United would bring back Alvaro Fernandez in January, sign Teo in the summer, and have Fernandez as a younger understudy and eventual replacement for Teo, even though Teo would still have another 4 or 5 years left at the top. So from a tactical perspective, having Frimpong and Teo would provide Amorim with the option of working the ball efficiently down the flank in the middle third. So this is how I would set up the side against a 4-4-2 in the middle third. I'd have the wing-backs holding deeper positions on the flanks, rather than high positions like natural wingers. And the reason for this is that it will put the opposition's wide midfielders and fullbacks in a positional dilemma. When the ball goes out to United's right-sided centre-back in the back three, Euro in this example, the opposition's wide midfielder is either going to have to hold his position and stop the pass going out to Frimpong, but this is going to afford Euro space wide of the front two and enable him to carry the ball into that space. Or the wide midfielder can step out to engage Euro, which is then going to open up that passing lane out to the wing back, Frimpong in this example, sitting in that deeper position on the flank. And because of this deeper position, the opposition's left back is not going to be able to get out quickly enough in order to stop him receiving the ball. If the left back then chooses to hold his position in the back line, Frimpong is then afforded the space to quickly carry the ball into, progressing it up the pitch. But if the left back does move out to engage Frimpong, then this will open up space in behind down the channel for either Ahmad or Bruno Fernandes, or maybe even Mason Mount in the right-sided half space to make an underlapping run into, which in turn is then going to force the left-sided centre-back to come across into a wider position. Alternatively, against a 4-5-1 in the middle third, because the opposition has an extra man in the midfield line, the width of their midfield is going to enable them to shut off that space in the wide area for Teo and Frimpong the wing-backs. And so in this example, what Amorim could do is instruct Teo and Frimpong to hold higher positions in the middle third, or should I say initially hold deeper positions and then look to make movements higher up the flanks, which should then entice the opposition's wide midfielders to track the runs of United's wing-backs into deeper positions, dragging them almost into the back line, which then should open up space for the wide points in Amorim's back three, the Sandro Martinez on the left and Euro on the right, to receive the ball in, carry it forward into the space, and then look to create a 3v2 down the channel. So overall, Jeremy Frimpong coming in as a right wing back, probably around £45 million. You've got Mazraoui and Dalot as backups in that position as well. Both of those can also play as right-sided centre-backs. And then one of Teo Hernandez or Alphonso Davies as the starting left wing back. I'd probably go with Teo just because I think Alphonso Davies' salary package is going to be too expensive and he'll probably go to Real Madrid anyway. Teo would cost between £30 to £35 million, and you could also sign Alvaro Fernandez in January. I can't remember what the exact figure is, but if you take away what Benfica would have paid for him in the summer, it's only about £5-6 million extra we're paying, so we might as well bring him back, have him as the understudy to Teo Hernandez, with the view of him being his long-term replacement in 4 or 5 years.